Karate Kid, a remake of, yes, a 1984 film with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. This time we have Jaden Smith, much younger. Obviously, he was, I think, maybe 10 or 11 shooting this, but he and his mom moved from Detroit to China, where his mom, Taraji P. Henderson, has taken on a new job. And Jaden Smith runs afoul of the bullies, and he meets Jackie Chan, who's the maintenance man, who decides that he's going to mentor him in Kung Fu. And much fighting and coming of age, I think, ensues. So let's take a look at the trailer.
Dre, you ready? I feel like we're on a quest to start a new life.
Welcome to Beijing.
Look at that, Dre. Beverly Hills. We always talked about living there.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about the other one, Mom.
I just want to go home.
This is home.
The only way to stop them is to face them. I will teach you.
Nice.
Take up your jacket. Take it down. Put it on.
You ready?
Take it off.
I already did.
Jacket off.
Let's go. Yeah.
Strike. Handle. Pick up your jacket. Focus.
10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
I love how all you guys are laughing your asses off in there.
Exactly. The guys in the control room are
Right.
going insane.
Guys in the
Oh my
booth.
God, I can't believe these little kids would be beating each other like this.
Do you want to come out here? Because we can trade places. That'd be more fun, I think. Because what you're saying is hilarious in there. Yeah, we all have a lot of problems with this movie. Jonathan, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I meant Taraji P. Henson. I believe I said Henderson. With this movie, I was shocked at how much I liked it, actually. I think it totally stands on its own. You don't have to know anything about the first movie to like it. It's shot beautifully in China. It's shot and looks like a grown-up movie. And I think that Jackie Chan adds a lot of legitimacy to it. I think that the training scenes with him work so much better than with Pat Morita because, as we know, Jackie Chan is amazing, actually doing martial arts. I mean, as the guys were saying, there is a big problem with Jaden Smith looking so small, and which makes the romance stuff not really work that well. And his performance can be kind of uneven. But I thought it was culturally very sensitive, a great look at Beijing in terms of it just being like a city. There aren't a lot of stereotypes involved in that. And I thought it was tense, and it's a long movie. It's like over 2 hours long.
2 hours and 15 minutes long. But the original was actually like 2:06.
Yeah, but I didn't have any idea it was that long until I read it afterwards. I was with it the whole time, so I really enjoyed it.
All righty then. Matt?
You know, I'll start off saying I did like this movie, and I'm kind of where you are. That I thought that I was somewhat surprised by how much I liked it because this was another movie that like you said about A-Team, this is a movie that I didn't think really needed to be remade. And first of all, not as the Karate Kid because it's in China,
It's the Kung Fu Kid.
and he's teaching him Kung Fu.
Yeah.
So if you can't get the title right, that's kind of a strike against you. That being said, it is an enjoyable movie. It had me for the whole thing, but there are some what I feel like big flaws. I feel like Jaden Smith is far too young. The storyline for a 12-year-old didn't feel like it was working for me sometimes in that, the bullies are kicking the hell out of this kid, and they're all supposed to be like at best 6th graders,
Like junior
7th
high, I
graders,
think,
right? Like junior
basically.
high kids.
Yeah.
There's kind of a romantic subplot between Jaden Smith and this Chinese girl that I didn't buy at all because any 12-year-old boy is going to be gross. I don't care who you are. I think that's a little. And so one of the things that I bring that up because to me it felt like it takes away from why the bullying kids are so down on Jaden Smith, right? In the original, Ralph Macchio runs afoul of Johnny because he's flirting with his ex-girlfriend, and he's kind of the new punk kid. And so Johnny, played so well by William Zabka,
Love him.
comes in.
He is the 80s.
And you know, I bring this up because I read this recent there's a fantastic article in the Onion AV Club with Zabka where he talks about he saw something that Johnny comes in and suddenly everything's turned on its ear, and that's part of why he hates Daniel so much. You don't see that in this one. It's you know, the friend of the family is just angry that the black kid is talking to the Chinese girl.
He's like protective of her.
Yeah,
or
they could
something like
protective,
that.
and
made
they
it more like
They
a
couldn't-
crush.
And I
but they
felt like
didn't.
there was this, you know, undercurrent of maybe they're mad at him because he's black.
Right, is
and
it
that-
racial?
Is it racial? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that kind of bothered me. That I had a problem with. And yes, the movie's too long. Like, do we need helicopter shots of them training on the Great Wall?
You do because you can get them, I guess.
Like,
I mean, they're
like,
pretty,
it's
but they
cool,
waste
you
a
know
lot
what?
of time.
Like,
right?
yeah, exactly. I felt like that was too long. But that being said, you know, ultimately I did enjoy the movie. It was a good time, and I think it's nice to see Jackie Chan playing a serious role. We haven't seen that in a long, long
He's
time.
really good. There's like a
He
lot of
really
heft to
fantastic.
it.
Really
brings
since-
it. They flesh out that character so much
You know,
more.
the last thing I saw him be so serious in was Crime Story. You know, he's not mugging. He's not doing Jackie Chan the clown.
There's all the acrobatic stuff going on, but he's not like cutesy smiling for the camera.
Right. You know, I mean, granted, we only really get one fight scene out of him, and he really plays it down. And there's a really dramatic scene, you know, and I'm not really giving anything away because the plot does stay very close to the original film. You know, it's very similar to the original film with Pat Morita's scene where he kind of has the breakdown about losing his wife. And there's a very similar scene with Jackie Chan, and you realize there's tragedy in his past. And he plays it very serious and very effectively. And I found that scene to be surprisingly moving.
Yeah, he's pretty much the only reason I like this movie at all. I have to preface all this by saying, like, I loved Karate Kid growing up. Like, I was 12 when it came out. Like, I had a big crush on Ralph Macchio. I wanted to be Elizabeth Shue. Like, I went and saw it at the UA in Warner Center in Woodland Hills, snuck into the bathroom, went back inside again. Like, it matters to me from my childhood. And, like, the idea of a remake, like, tears at the fiber of my adolescence. Seriously. We've all said that Jaden Smith looks too young. Ralph Macchio was what, like 35 when he made this? But he looked 16.
But he looks 16,
Which the
and
character was.
they play 16
Right.
in the original film,
Right.
and so it works.
It makes sense having, you know, fights and having a romance. Jaden Smith is 12, but he looks 9. And even when he goes through his obligatory training montage, his version of wax on, wax off,
Right.
he's still a really pretty and very tiny little dude.
Tiny.
He's really tiny. And so it's sort of irreparable. Like, the fights don't make sense, the romance does not make sense. The whole thing with the girl is very stilted. She's very shy. There's no chemistry there at all. It's just, it's premature because they're both
Yeah.
like 12. Having said that, I think people who weren't 12 when the first one came out, if they're seeing it now, they might dig it because it is like a very traditional, rousing crowd pleaser. I can see how people that age will like it, and they won't have a problem with it being a remake. Like you said, like you think it stands on its own. I think a lot of people will go into it thinking it stands on its own. I have a very hard time divorcing myself from how I felt about it growing up, the original growing
Yeah,
up.
no,
So-
and I think that I feel like on a certain level they really shot themselves in the foot with the idea of remaking it and calling it a remake or reboot of the original because there's such affection, and the original is such a fantastic movie.
Mhm.
And that's a lot to live up to, and they do miss the mark in a few places. I agree with you, although
The script is like
you know,
identical, though. I
the
mean, there's like a
script is-
sweep the leg moment. I
Right,
mean,
exactly,
There's all that
exactly.
strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir stuff.
you know,
It's
but,
all the same.
But that being said, like I said, I was with the movie as much as it's long. I was kind of with it the whole time, and I do also have to point out, for better or for worse, Jaden Smith is absolutely his father's son. It's like watching a 12-year-old Will Smith run around.
He's too damn
He
cute.
moves
huh?
like him. He sounds like him.
He
It
can
almost
do this humor and little dancing
exactly
moves and
almost
stuff.
to the point of distraction, almost to the point that some of his jokes and some of his little asides and his one-liners, I'm thinking either his father coached him through that, or that's the kind of stuff his father says around the house.
You think it's just like in the DNA?
I think
I
they're
don't
just
know.
DNA
they're
is
just
a trip.
charismatic
Yeah.
kind of
Right,
kids.
but he sounds exactly like his father, which is great. That's not a bad thing. There are worse actors to emulate than Will Smith.
Right.
But I mean, I think one question is like, do you think that parents will dislike because, like, for me, like I said, I feel like it was a real movie. Like, they did do a lot of stuff where there's subtitles. It's beautifully shot. It's like a real story that, I mean, as much as it's long, I felt like the pacing was all right. I feel like parents being dragged to see this are not going to be gritting their teeth.
No,
through it.
absolutely
and it's
not.
PG also.
Yeah.
It's pretty safe
Right.
for everybody.
Except for the preteen full contact fighting, which
Right, beating
it's
the
kind
crap out
of
of
it's kind
each
of
other.
hard
Well,
to sort
and
of watch that.
that's
at
part of
that
the
time.
problem, right? Is you get to the point where, as in the original, there's a big tournament, and you're seeing these kids go off, and it's almost, I might have bought it if they were 3 or 4 years older,
Yeah.
but watching 12-year-olds hitting each other so hard they're flipping over and coming off the mat.
And there's
it's
a
little
broken
much.
leg, a very important broken leg.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say whose it is.
Jaden Smith's mom cheering even though her son is getting the crap
Right,
beat out of him
exactly,
so much. Like she's
exactly.
not rushing down to save him.
Well,
she's
and
just
that's
like,
the thing.
oh.
If you did it some kind of tournament with full contact kids in this country at 12-year-olds abusing each other the way they did in this, everybody involved would be arrested. Seriously.
So when they do a film version of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, we now know who can star in it. Yes. So our ratings. What'd you give it?
In spite of all my complaints, I still think it was a good time, and I give it a 6.5.
A 6.5. And you?
Said I was surprised at how much I like it. I deduct points for Jaden Smith being too young, and which makes the romance not work quite as well. But I went high on this one. I said 8.2.
Wow. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to drag us down. I'm giving it a 4.9. Yeah, I've got a lot of problems with it. But our average is actually higher than our average for 18. We're going to give it a cumulative average. I don't know. It's math. 6.5. So we like this one better than 18.
6.5.
Are you sure
That's-
it's not just the young Christy who didn't like it, who
Yeah,
who misses Johnny and Ralph.
the chubby adolescent in me cries out, "No, it's wrong. I want Billy Zabka." That's it for the week. That's awesome. That was a good week, you guys. We'll come back to reality to 2010 now, and next week we have Toy Story 3, which is, of course, in 3D because everything is. So till then, Jonathan, Matt, thanks a lot, you guys. See you next week.